Good morning. Today I'm going to read from a classic of American literature, House Made of Dawn by N. Scott Momaday. Momaday was the first Native American to win the Pulitzer Prize. This won the Pulitzer in 1969. He's considered just a huge giant in the field of literature. He's still alive, lives down in New Mexico, I believe. He's a Kiowa. And I'm just going to read the prologue and then a little bit from the first chapter. Dipola. This was a house made of dawn. It was made of pollen and of rain, and the land was very old and everlasting. There were many colors on the hills, and the plain was bright with different colored clays and sands. Red and blue and spotted horses grazed in the plain, and there was a dark wilderness on the mountains beyond. The land was still and strong. It was beautiful all around. Abel was running. He was alone and running, hard at first, heavily, but then easily and well. The road curved out in front of him and rose away in the distance. He could not see the town. The valley was gray with rain, and snow lay out upon the dunes. It was dawn. The first light had been deep and vague in the mist, and then the sun flashed, and a great yellow glare fell under the cloud. The road verged upon clusters of juniper and mesquite, and he could see the black angles and twists of wood beneath the hard white crust. There was a shine and glitter on the ice. He was running. He could see the horses in the fields and the crooked line of the river below. For a time the sun was whole beneath the cloud, and then it rose into eclipse, and a dark and certain shadow came upon the land. And Abel was running. He was naked to the waist, and his arms and shoulders had been marked with burnt wood and ashes. The cold rain slanted down upon him and left his skin mottled and streaked. The road curved out and lay into the bank of rain beyond, and Abel was running. Against the winter sky and the long light landscape of the valley at dawn, he seemed almost to be standing still, very little and alone. Chapter 1, The Long Hair, Walatawa, Canyon de San Diego, 1945. The sun lies in a river The river lies in a valley of hills and fields. The north end of the valley is narrow, and the river runs down from the mountains through a canyon. The sun strikes the canyon floor only a few hours each day, and in winter the snow remains for a long time in crevices of the walls. There is a town in the valley, and there are ruins of other towns in the canyon. In 3 directions from the town there are cultivated fields. Most of them lie to the west, across the river on the slope of the plain. Now and then in winter, great angles of geese fly through the valley, and then the sky and the geese are the same color, and the air is hard and damp, and smoke rises from the houses of the town. The seasons lie hard upon the land. In summer the valley is hot, and birds come to the tamarack on the river. The feathers of blue and yellow birds are prized by the townsmen. The fields are small and irregular, and from the west mesa they seem an intricate patchwork of arbors and gardens, too numerous for the town. The townsmen work all summer in the fields. When the moon is full, they work at night with ancient homemade plows and hoes, and if the weather is good and the water plentiful, they take a good harvest from the fields. They grow the things that can be preserved easily, corn and chilies and alfalfa. On the town side of the river, there are a few orchards and patches of melons and grapes and squash. Every 6 or 7 years, there is a great harvest of piñones far to the east of the town. The harvest, like the deer in the mountains, is the gift of God. It is hot in the end of July. The old man Francisco drove a team of roan mares near the place where the river bends around a cottonwood. The sun shone on the sand and the river and the leaves of the tree, and waves of heat shimmered from the stones. The colored stones on the bank of the river were small and smooth, and they rubbed together and cracked under the wagon wheels. Once in a while, one of the roan horses tossed its head, and the commotion of its dark mane sent a swarm of flies into the air. Downstream, the brush grew thick on the bar in the river, and there the old man saw the reed. He turned the mares into the water and stepped down on the sand. A sparrow hung up upon the reed. It was upside down, and its wings were partly open, and the feathers at the back of its head lay spread in a tiny ruff. The eyes were neither open nor closed. Francisco was disappointed, for he had wished for a male mountain bluebird, breast feathers the pale color of April skies or of turquoise, lake water, or a summer tanager. A prayer plume ought to be beautiful. He drew the reed from the sand and cut loose the horsehair from the sparrow's feet. The bird flew into the water and was carried away in the current. He turned the reed in his hands. It was smooth and nearly translucent, like the spine of an eagle feather, and it was not yet burned and made brittle by the sun and wind. He had cut the hair too short, and he pulled another from the tail of the near roan and set the snare again. When the reed was curved and strung like a bow, he replaced it carefully in the sand. He laid his forefinger lightly on top of the reed, and the reed sprang, and the looped end of the hair snapped across his finger and made a white line above the nail. "Si, bien hecho," he said out loud, and without removing the reed from the sand, he cocked it again. House Made of Dawn, N. Scott Momaday. Have a great day.